getting this thing fucking going. Here we go.
Maybe had them start clicking like and subscribe.
YouTube! Hit that fucking button and that other fucking button, and maybe there's a third button. I'm not really sure. I don't know how any of this works. Alright. I am here with my dear friend and sick drummer and space mate, Jaques Johnson. Jaques, why don't you tell them what you do, what you play in currently, and what you played in past?
Currently, I play mostly alone. Yeah, I'm not really playing with anybody right now. I used to play in a band called Belus for a pretty long time. And that's been kind of defunct for some years. And I have had like a recording project going with some mutual friends. And that's was pretty cool and super fun.
Friends.
Don't know if we'll ever
They've been talking about
finish it.
They've been making noises.
Yeah, I mean they make noise. We make noise, and then we'll get together periodically. So one day.
So to give you a sense of maybe what kind of thing this man is into, let me do this for a second. We'll see the jazzer kit over in the corner.
Oh yeah.
So we make really good roommates in this respect because, for one, we both keep incredibly chaotic spaces, and it just works out. We leave each other little like weird mouse nibbles of snacks and
little Kit Kat here and there.
Other fun stuff, snacks or drugs or fucking whatever. But also, Jaques is like a master baker, so he keeps fucking hours that are diametrically opposed to me, so we very easily intersect. But I often hear him working on really cool, fucking slick jazzer licks that are beyond my comprehension. What are you working on right now?
Right now is like some, I guess, sort of inspired by like Billy Cobham stuff. With like, I know everybody's really in on the Tony right hand and the 1 2 3 4 5 or what is it, Show Me My Surprise or Spang-a-lang-a-lang or however people want to do that. But
forgive me, my audience is uncultured swine. You might have to explain some of this.
Anyway, for like drum guys, Tony Williams was a famous drummer. I would say jazz drummer, but he did like a ton of
at least fusion,
other things, and fusion, and like he's like the drummer's drummer, like in general, and came up with a bunch of, I guess, idioms that at the time like really pushed the boundary of what was happening, both like in rock and jazz or fusion or whatever else previously. I don't know, I don't want it to be like a jazz history thing. It's lame.
I mean, it could be whatever the fuck we want it to be. But also, these people should learn something. This person should learn something.
Or the viewer.
The viewer. Hi, viewer.
But yeah, basically, he kind of changed the game, like, not once in, like, his lifetime, but twice. Like, first with, like, I guess, bop or hard bop or post bop or whatever people want to throw it, because like honestly, like it's his fraught with like micro genre upon micro genre. They just use like, I guess, more highfalutin terminology or sounding terminology, but like if you said, oh yeah, it's like a Black and Death whatever, like
I feel you.
The nerds in each camp like
it's
gravitate
like
immediately and know
free hard bop with the sprinkling
of modal this and that, and but like it really it's the same kind of vibe where like if you like speak the language or whatever, or just like research a tiny bit when like even when you were getting into metal, right, and you'd be like, oh, so and so is death metal, such and such is black metal. Well, within black metal, there's cold black metal and first wave black metal, and and so on and so on and so on.
Right, and it's not really research so much as just like listening to the music.
Well, listening to music, getting into it, like if I'm only, I think, like a year or two older than you, so you remember, like, fanzines and shit like that, where, like, oh, so-and-so would be selling this, and you'd be like, oh, that's awesome, and it was, like, this thing that was specifically about what you were into.
Absolutely.
I was a big zine guy.
I remember going to shows and, like, shows in the city, and the Grimoire of Exalted Deeds would be everywhere. I don't know if that was out west, but that was...
I did not have that.
That was an offensive rag. It was quite something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I think about it, too, as, like... Well, anyway, when you're, like, a teenager or whatever, and you're, like, just starting to get into stuff. And, like, feed me more, like, whatever you've got of that thing that you...
What was your thing as a kid?
As a little kid, a lot of classical.
Oh, like, word, okay.
But not, like, cool, highfalutin, intentionally so, like, oh, Grandma got me a Fantasia,
okay,
like, you know what I mean? And, like, that would just be on repeat over and over again.
When did you discover
like that.
Drumming?
Drumming, probably around 12.
Okay, and what were you listening to?
12, I had a buddy down the street who played drums, and they were Dutch.
Oh,
and his dad was really, really into Focus.
Okay.
And so I
That's
remember,
kind of sick shit.
Like, kind of getting really into, like, I guess that style or that era of, like, yeah, it's rock, but, like, there's other shit going on.
It's very ambitious rock.
Totally. I don't know if I'd necessarily hit it with, like, a prog label at that point, but, yeah, so it was a lot of stuff like that, and then, like, I grew up in Southern California, so it was also, like, shit like the Vandals and Black Flag, and, like, all the shit that, like, you kind of had to be into, whether you were that into it or not, because it was such a part of being, like, a teenager in the 90s.
Just the cultural
like, it was just, like, it was there, it was around, everybody knew it, whether it was, like, specifically your thing, like, it was just so ubiquitous.
Were you into jazz at all, or did that come later?
That came a lot later.
Is your dad a jazz musician?
No, my dad is a retired colonel in the Air Force.
Oh shit! Why did I think he was?
He played, I ended up taking his kid.
That's right. That's
out of the attic around 12.
I didn't realize you came from a military family.
Yeah.
You don't seem it.
Well, I mean, you'd be surprised how many, like, kids of military parents end up, like, in kitchens and doing stuff like that.
Probably wouldn't if I thought about it.
It kind of lines up.
Yeah, it makes some sense.
But, I wasn't really... I don't have, like, the cool, like, oh, I saw this record and it changed my life until, like, probably a bit older. I remember always enjoying music, always listening to music.
What was that life-changing record for you?
The really, really big one, I think, for me was probably Bloodlet. You remember that band?
Yeah.
They were like a weird, like, hardcore but not a hardcore band. From, I think, like, Florida or something like that, but they were on, like, a Victory Records sampler, this and that. And I'd gotten it at the record store because, like, it had an Integrity song on it or something like that. And, I'm like 13, 14. And I listened to that, and it was so different. Like, it just, with the way they played behind the beat or having, like, more walking bass lines and stuff like that. And then from there, it kind of, like, sprung me off, I guess, less, like, into, like, hardcore specifically, like most of my buddies at the time, but that was kind of how I got more into, like, metal and other stuff. Like, there was this big show with Bloodlet opening for Neurosis.
Oh shit! What era of Neurosis?
That probably would have been in Around Silver and Blood.
Oh, dude, that's very cool.
And, well, it is very cool, but it's one of those, like, a lot of people, like, went to that show. I didn't get to go to that show because it was, like, an hour and a half, and my buddy's brother was driving, and I was, like, 13, 14 years old, and my parents didn't want me, like, driving 50 miles in, like, some teenage kid's fucking car.
That was the convenience of growing up here, was, like...
Yeah, it was probably
there was no like, driving 50 miles.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm going to go out and...
It was like, can I take the subway to CBGB's? Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, totally.
No, I didn't think about that, but yeah.
But I remember, like, the two buddies who were, like, the older brothers of the guys that I knew had gone and had told me, like, oh, dude, it was crazy. Everybody, like, sat down. And I remember, like, at the time, like, my mind being blown. Like, what? You mean they didn't mosh? Like...
I remember seeing Neurosis around a similar time frame, maybe a few years later. And Nick and I, we went for Candiria. We were super into Candiria.
I definitely
we weren't that into Neurosis, and we were so, like, nonplussed by, like, the way people were reacting to Neurosis and, like, you know, like... witchy woman dancing and stuff.
Right.
What the fuck is going on, man?
Totally.
But it was pretty sick. But I wish I had appreciated it more at the time. You know, like that would have been a legendary show if I had like known what I was seeing.
Right.
But I didn't. Got into them way later. So yeah, man. You know this is, for the most part, you've seen some of this shit. It's mostly just wide-ranging conversations. But if there's any sort of like mission statement or theme, it's about talking about the intersections of life and drumming and like mental health and shit like that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you're a fellow neurotic motherfucker.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can't even tell since I'm on camera, it's like fucking fidgeting everywhere.
Me too.
But. Yeah, definitely.
So, like, what has your journey been like in terms of as a person, as a man, and also like as a drummer in terms of your own view of yourself and your view of your playing and things like that?
I mean, honestly, like all of it, it's ever evolving.
Sure,
you know?
Of course.
It's I guess as a player, I mean, I've been playing fairly consistently since I was 12.
Yeah.
And I really love doing it. Whether I was necessarily like as a kid, right? You can be in a garage band or like a band with your buddies, or like you're just basically relegated to like school band, or you know, if your parents are like cool enough to let you have a drum kit, do you get to play in the house? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of a huge one for so many people growing up.
Absolutely. It is not an easy instrument to deal with logistically.
No. Like,
at any age, but especially growing up.
Parents who let their kids like play in the house,
that's like
a big deal.
You're the real MVP.
Like, absolutely. So yeah, it was a strict household, so like I was often grounded.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, military household.
But that didn't mean I couldn't play drums.
Right, so that was like an activity.
So, yeah, when everybody else was like out getting to socialize or do things, I was grounded. So it's like, well, fuck, I might as well like learn to do this thing. And so that got me just more or less really into playing.
Right on.
My dad tried to teach me to count, as did my uncle, but they both weren't that great about it.
It's the sort of thing where if it's explained to you in a poor way, it sounds like the most confusing thing in the world.
It was,
and it can be explained in such a simple way.
Such a simple way.
You could teach kindergartners how to count music.
Totally. That did not come until so much later in life for me. It was a lot more of hear this, copy this.
I think
hear this, copy this.
Informs
over
your playing,
and over and over and over again until it was like as exact as I could possibly get it.
I think your ear is super developed probably because of that. You know, I think both are really useful. You don't need to read music to be a good drummer or a good musician. But it can be really or like learn how to process the music you're hearing in terms of breaking it down, counting the theory of
Totally.
It can be really helpful. It's not necessary. It can be really helpful. But one of the things I love about Jaques playing, one of the things I really gravitate towards in players is players who sound like themselves on their instrument and have a voice, and that voice is representative of who they are. That sounds more wishy-washy than it actually is. But like people sound like really good players sound like themselves. Like if you met them and then you see them play, it makes sense. There's a connective tissue there. So your playing is like really fluid and really expressive and really sort of snaky and octopusy and there's something hilariously SoCal about it. There's like yeah man, but also you could fucking fire it off when you want to. And one other thing that's really cool about your playing is it's up until like 3 months ago you never fucked ever with a double kick pedal.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is something deeply lacking in metal. Is an innovation by subtraction of something like that.
I mean, it wasn't like an intentional thing.
Yeah.
It was that I tried it like a little bit. Like by a little bit, I mean, oh, my buddy has a double pedal. Mm-hmm. I'm, 18 and really into, I don't know, what was I really into at 18? I don't know, name some fucking goofball death metal band that we've all forgotten about.
Intestine ballism.
Totally. Or like, oh, wow, because like, at 18, I was definitely way more into like 3-1G bands and stuff from San Diego. And so it'd be like, oh, Cattle Decapitation has double bass. I should get into that. And like, nah, I failed miserably.
But you developed a pretty wild right foot. I mean,
yeah, a lot of it was just out of sheer like, well, metal has certain idioms, and you kind of, as much as I don't want to, more because I mean, that's a different topic, but I don't really find that incredibly interesting for myself, not necessarily to listen to. I fucking love it, but like,
so you're saying you don't find the idioms of metal drumming incredibly interesting?
Most of the time, yeah.
I think that's fair. It's the same shit over and over again. I'm guilty as anybody.
But there's that dichotomy on it too, because I love like a hypno wheel, like anything that like can catch you and repeat over and over and over.
I know what you mean.
I get super sucked in, helps me focus, and like I'm really into it, which metal has, and maybe that's part of the draw for me. But like in terms of what comes out of me, that's not it.
Yeah,
and it never has been for as much as I've tried. When I can I copy it?
Yeah,
to an extent. Yeah,
I've seen you do it. I mean, Belus had Blast, and I'll leave out
plenty. But if I'm really not trying to copy you, which honestly, most of the early like Belus Blast stuff, it was me going, well, I can't do that. How does Lev do this? And I'm serious.
That's
like, it's
so
not like
awesome.
A thing, but it was literally how you made sure that you had some kind of an accent pattern going in your right hand. Yep. And because, like I was saying about my dads and uncles, what they did teach me to count was everything in triplet.
Right.
So it was 1E and a 2E and a 3E, everything.
Yeah.
And so when you are able to do that, that was how I was able to like lock in and be like, oh, yeah, all right, no sweat, and then it's just a matter of working the muscles.
Yeah,
but
for me, the accent pattern is secondary. It's like a really convenient happenstance of wanting a certain motion to help me lock in.
Right.
And the lock in creates the accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, okay, this is a win-win.
Totally. For me, like when I'm hearing something though, the accent almost comes first. If that's how I like tend to process
hear like the riff
or grab things, is like I'll hear it as like almost like a drum riff.
I do
which is probably a consequence of us playing alone a lot, as well as other people.
But I love the way you put that, because it's something I teach when people come to ask about fills in particular. Right. I'm like, take the riff and make it a 2-dimensional rhythmic phrase in your head with accents being the melodic spikes.
Totally.
You know, so if it's like now take that and make that the basis for how you're going to divide your fill around the drums. Like,
totally.
Either make that an accent pattern in and of itself, or that can be your tom part. So boom, do, 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 between the tom and the snare, fucking whatever.
Totally.
But like, start with some really holistic skeletal work and build from there, and it makes life easier. But yeah, that's the way I process riffs. Also, I think we're very similar.
Not only does it make your life easier though when you're doing it, but you also kind of automatically make yourself a servant of the song. Because you're doing the riff.
I love that phrasing. Servant of the song is exactly the way I want to think about it.
Totally.
Like we are not the primary movers. We are servants to the melody.
Yeah, exactly. But it's important too that you say the melody, whether that's coming from guitar or from something your bass player is doing other than keeping time with you, or particularly like vocal melody.
I guess
melody.
So. That's something I have less.
It's almost the same like thing though. Like when metal, when you think about what's the phrasing that they're doing,
mm-hmm.
right? Or like what's the like Matt used to be like, I've got to like come up with my vocal pattern,
right.
And you like
man, I gotta come up with my vocal pattern.
Yeah, sorry, Matt.
I love you, Matt.
Oh, jeez. All right, we're guilty of doing the Matt. Sorry, bro.
It was inevitable.
It really was.
Only love, Matt. Fuck you, buddy. Love you, but fuck you. Love you.
But yeah, man. Like, sorry, what we were talking about.
Matt Mutant.
Oh right, no, we were
doing
talking
vocal
about.
Patterns.
Oh yeah.
Using
vocal
those
patterns.
as like a melody.
Well, even using those as like a melody, like often like when you're writing, right? Like, sure, the riff comes first, or so and so shows up, and you put that down. But something that I guess you can also be mindful of, or what I used to try and be mindful of once they locked in their what notes they wanted to hit, like when in time they wanted to have those points, was like revise some drum stuff and be like, oh, that was cool, like I like what they did. How do you set that off, or how do you make that happen? Whether it's like, you know what, I'm gonna hit an upbeat here or something else.
It almost sounds like you're describing working a big band chart, setting up the hit.
I kind of think of it that way in terms of like something like the big band guys used to do, right? You set up the hit. They used to call kicking the band, and you would do it, and then right before the horn blast or whatever, you would get a quick accent or some bombs on the bass or whatever. But it's all still there. But like, there's a reason that sounds good to our ear.
Absolutely.
And especially for something like, that doesn't necessarily sound like metal or whatever, but like a big band, like that was like...
It's bombastic.
It's bombastic.
It's heavy.
It's loud. There's a big sound that's about to happen. And
like, we forget in the age of electric instruments, but if you put a shit ton of acoustic instruments together in a room, you get a lot of fucking sound.
It's fucking loud.
Yeah.
Or I mean, even like check out like J.G. Thirlwell's like stuff.
What's that?
He's like a New York dude, I think, or maybe he's English. I don't know. He used to play in New York a lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he was like a gothy dude from in like the 80s, and used to like pal around with Nick Cave and shit like that.
Okay, gotcha.
But he has what is it, Foetus and something or other, Maximus, like the name of his
like Foetus.
Yeah.
I still say fetus, by the way. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
I have no idea. I just know he had like some wild hair in the 80s.
I was gonna ask about the hair.
Yeah, I mean it's what we're really here for. But like his shit is like modern, like kind of bombastic big band.
Word. Okay,
like
cool.
his current stuff.
That sounds kind of sick.
And it's
so kind of like the Brian Seltzer Orchestra. I'm just fucking...
Yeah, but not lame.
I
mean, maybe joking. It's lame, but like
not fucking hip cat nonsense.
Yeah. It's definitely not like the Cherry Poppin' Daddies and Big Bad Voodoo Daddy and
Cherry Poppin' Daddies came up on tour just as like the most fucked up band name of all goddamn time.
Yeah, it's really not cool.
Yeah.
Like really not cool.
Yeah, like it puts like porno grind shit to shame.
Dude.
Like nobody's that fucked up.
Like I don't know, that whole like weird retro cosplay thing of like the 90s where like, oh, you can suddenly be really in, especially like Southern California, like that was like that's like that shit's like, homeland is like
what do they call pompadours?
Like bad pompadours and like dudes inexplicably like, you know, doing the jeans.
Oh
and
the roll-up
shirt,
jeans,
and the bowling shirt, and the
I fucking
like the cigarettes rolled up, and the old hot rods, and
it's
like
so stupid.
It's just one of those like, dude, if you're into hot rods, like that's cool. Hot rods are sick, but
you don't have to cosplay.
Like, yeah. But like, what's with this?
What's with the LARPing, fella?
Yeah, it's very like historical LARPing of the '90s was like, even with like punk shit. I mean, are you punk shit today?
No, for sure.
But, or I mean, metal dudes are super guilty of it too.
Oh, correct me. I mean, this wave has passed us by, but like the renaissance of like white high tops and flat brim hats
totally
was so fucking funny to me because it's like you realize that you're making a fashion statement based on like dudes just dressing normally for the era in which they were living.
Right.
They were not making a fashion statement.
Yeah,
they were
like,
just dressing normally.
This is what they look like, man.
And now you're making it a thing. Which, fair power to you, but like, I think you're silly.
I mean, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
You know?
Yeah. I can barely like groom myself as is.
I mean, I definitely struggle with the laundry dude and that kind of stuff.
I started using the drop off service. I don't know if I can go back.
Oh man, that's living.
It's so luxurious. It's not that much more expensive, but it is more expensive. It cost me like 20 something.
Yeah, but what's your time worth? You know?
It's fair.
Like
it's fair. Time is worth a lot. Time is the only true resource. But it's also an illusion. It's very complicated. But yeah, man. So
I don't know what we were. This is definitely going to be a rambly.
Ramble's the point. It's supposed to be a goddamn conversation, not a goddamn interrogation.
I appreciate the low pressure scenario.
Yeah. We're just a couple dudes talking. We're just talking. We're just saying things. But yeah, tell me a little bit about like how drumming music and like your craft has informed your life and like what you get out of it, what it's taken from you, like that kind of shit.
I mean, the older I get, the more I realize what a refuge, I guess it is. And oddly enough, like it kind of informs a lot. It informs a lot about, I guess, what I do for work,
so tell people a little bit about what you do for work, because it's pretty crazy.
I do, or did, for like years and years, like bread and pastries for like, the fancy restaurant thing.
Yes.
The Michelin stars and so forth, and worked for some very famous people, and it's hard. And everything that I do kind of involves timing and a rhythm and being able to move things through at a certain rate, see what's coming, know what's coming, have planned for it, know what's happening, how everyone has to move, how everything else has to move.
Interesting.
And oddly enough, like the guy that taught me, I wouldn't say how to bake, but taught me how to function in a high-level restaurant.
Because I understand those are very distinctive things.
You can be a rad cook.
Yeah.
You can be, a quote-unquote chef, right? Which is like an overused term, honestly. But like, you could be really, really great at it, but it's a different style of having to work.
I mean, when I see like TV shows or movies where there's like a kitchen scene, it stresses me out just watching the fucking dances.
I mean, there is some of that. I mean, thankfully, because I did Hotline, like when I was much younger, and not at that level.
Hotline is
so like
working the line.
Yeah, like working the line. Like I decided I was more into doing pastries, like when I was like still a teenager, because I started working like in restaurants when I was like 15.
Oh, gotcha, shit. Did you know that Was it just a gig, or did you know you were into it?
I mean, I liked doing it at home. It was definitely like in my house. It was like, oh well, I mean, if you can make it, go for it.
Oh,
like
sick.
It wasn't like you're not allowed in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like my mom wasn't honestly that into cooking.
Yeah.
So if I saw something on TV or wanted to make something, like have at it. Like
right
there's the cupboard.
So you cook for the family?
So I would cook like sometimes for the family, but mostly it was just like, oh, I gotta make lunch. Get home from school or do whatever else, and be like, oh, you know what? I need a snack. I need a snack before I watch this Batman cartoon.
That was a great fucking cartoon.
That was a great cartoon.
That was an all-timer.
Gargoyles?
Did you fuck with gargoyles?
I did fuck with some gargoyles. That was a little Disney afternoon action. I was definitely a DuckTales guy.
Oh, DuckTales. Darkwing Duck.
That was good shit.
Yeah,
that was good shit.
DuckTales was fucking awesome.
And some ridiculous music.
Yeah, I still remember some of it.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing. Like, some of those earworms, man, it never goes away.
Like the New Jack City.
Totally. It's the Darkwing Duck with the New Jack swing.
Darkwing Duck.
Oh, yeah. That was good shit.
Call DW, right?
That's right. When there's trouble, you call DW.
Oh, we're old.
Fucking A.
We're so old.
I know.
So, yeah, so you started working.
So, yeah, like, it's weird. The guy who taught me how to work that was a long segue. We made it back. Hey,
man, I'm in control of this ship.
Totally.
I know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing.
The guy who taught me how to, like actually, be like, look, it's about more than showing up on time and, like, getting the work done and, like, it's, using your head and really thinking about how you can make your life easier. Because, like, baking in general, like, it's super, super hard work and physical and yada yada, but also, like, we're the laziest. And it's kind of inherent because you do kind of only have the one shot to do it right.
Right.
And so that has to all be totally perfect. But if you do that and set it up well,
then you get to chill.
Your day is easier and easier and easier and easier, and the less work you really end up having to do.
There's something you said I want to come back to because I think it's a cool parallel, like about making your life easier.
Totally.
Because that is literally how I view what the first principles of technique are.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is though. But
it's like, the same thing. This is taking a lot out of me. How do I make this take less out of me?
How do I prepare myself to make this strike?
Yeah.
What position does my arm have to be in? Like, where am I holding the drumstick? And all of that stuff.
And then
it's all the same principle.
You get to stop thinking about it once.
Totally.
Once
you've built it in, whether it's a physical habit or the mental habit of, like, assigning portions of time in your day for X and Y and Z and tasks. This is not like a wake up at 5 a.m, bro culture thing. Like,
yeah.
But just in terms of, like, having to accomplish said thing, whether it's a song or, like, a day's bread production or X amount of pumpkin pies for Thanksgiving or, some fancy entremet, like...
What the fuck is an entremet?
It's like plated dessert,
okay.
Like where it looks all...
Okay, gotcha. With the like swirl of chocolate and
sure, yeah, with like the chocolate work or the like all the quenelles everywhere or whatever.
The what?
Quenelle, you know how if you're someplace real fancy, you get a scoop of ice cream that's in like the shape of a teardrop?
That's a quenelle?
Yeah, it's called a quenelle. It's like a specific technique.
See, I learned so much doing this.
See, there you go. Which also, I mean, like...
You have to learn how to do that with the spoon all fancy?
It took me a really long time, and I'm still kind of shit at it. But yeah, to like actually be able to pull a proper quenelle is a lot of practice.
Doesn't that have to do with like the consistency of the ice cream? Like
it does, but like a lot of stuff, it really does kind of come down to technique because people can seen people pull them out of actually like somewhat thin whipped cream to like creamed corn, like all sorts of like
word.
I mean that's like a little over the top.
But no, but I love that metaphor too, or parallel too, because like sometimes I start to worry about my gear or the tension of the head or whatever, and it's like no, just worry about yourself.
Totally.
Just take care of yourself, and everything else will follow.
It's the athlete, not the operator.
Yeah,
it's like the better way of
a good craftsman never blames the fact that he's a tool.
I'll go with that one. But it's true. Like if you establish a technique that works well with your body and how you sit and what your proportions are, or where your center of gravity is, and like all of that stuff, like kind of comes into play. And you get it by, figuring out, literally just figuring it out.
I've learned to like trust my process too. A bit like, you figure this out every day. It happens. Just allow yourself the grace to realize that you will figure it out today.
Well, totally. Like, give yourself like the perspective of like all the time. I try and like do it. Like, I'll move weird shit around, or like you can see like on the kit, like totally move floor tom. Oh yeah, floor tom's moved.
This is so convenient to be here in the flesh.
That is actually pretty cool. But like, you
got a mean triangle going right now,
around,
and no room for your fucking leg whatsoever.
I mean, well, you seem like I tend to sit like pretty much right on top of everything, and I guess about as high up as the John Deere seat will go.
If you want, I mean, you're more than welcome to do some hitting if you want to show people the kind of shit you work on. But you're also no pressure. You don't.
I'd say that's a lot of pressure. That's the other thing about the mental health and not.
Playing, I fully understand.
Not playing for 5 years in front of people.
There's a reason.
Like 2 weeks ago.
There's a big reason I do this shit, and it's because I feel very uncomfortable with cameras.
Oh, totally.
So I'm like inoculating myself.
I mean, that is brave and noble, and someone needs to do it.
Yeah, man. I know, because I like seeing the warts in others. I really like mistakes in playing and human playing, but
absolutely,
it's a hard thing to accept in oneself. So
no, it sucks.
Part of doing these interviews, doing all this YouTube bullshit, is showing the shit in the sausage and trying to be transparent about it and healthy about it. Because we all suck sometimes. It doesn't mean we suck, and sometimes your brain doesn't allow you to make that very important distinction. I think Jaques is unfortunately a bit of a fellow sufferer in this respect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we'll go on that vein. Even during my time, like when I played, I had band practice 3 times a week, and we played out 2 or 3 times a month, or went on tour and everything else, like quite some time ago. It was really hard to perform in front of people. Always kind of has been.
What's your methodology for making yourself comfortable, or making yourself as comfortable as you can make yourself?
I'm better now at sitting in discomfort.
That's a huge thing, right?
It's tough. I mean, honestly, like it used to be. Like, I'd get just drunk enough, which I don't recommend to anybody.
This is something I've talked about with some people in these, and I've been meaning to talk about with everybody, is like, what level of sobriety or lack thereof do you like to perform under? Because I know a lot of guys like booze for it, because it helps with anxiety. I would happily drink before I played if it didn't have really annoying physical ramifications for my playing.
Well, and down the line too.
Oh yeah, it's alcohol is really a pretty destructive fucking thing in general. Stick to good drugs like weed. But also, like, it does help with I don't give a fuck, which is a great way to be playing shows from. But my arms
it's
feel
a
like
great way to be able to play shows. Yeah. It was a great way to be able to like be at a venue and have to interact with a bunch of strangers,
which is another thing
I'm not the biggest fan of doing.
Or even a bunch of not strangers could be overwhelming.
Absolutely. Like even your best buds, like hanging out. Like
it's like, am I saying hi to this guy too much? Should I go over there and say hi to this guy?
Exactly. Like there are all of those fun, like neurotic interactions like sparking off around you, and that can get to be a lot. So that was usually my solution, which eventually didn't work out for me.
So when
I had to stop.
When you had to stop, what did you turn to? Like, are you stone cold sober when you play, or are you a little weeded up?
If I have to play out, like even toward the tail end of Belus, I was always like stone cold.
Word.
And try to be like I kind of came to a point where it wasn't fun, and I had to find a way to make it fun for myself.
I know I'm finding I'm a little bit incapable of that without chemical supplement.
I can absolutely understand and relate. I guess my thing, it was kind of came down to like what I was saying earlier. Like, I can't copy Lev. I can't copy Mike. I can't do it, one, because like it's not cool. You're my buddies. Two, I'm likely not technically capable on some ends,
and more technically capable in other ends.
Maybe, but like you guys doing you and what comes out of you is, like in your case, like this beautiful, flowing, but insanely powerful, like it's relentless, Lev. It's sick.
Cheers.
Like speak of Hypno Wheel, like that's like that shit grabs me. I mean, or like on the opposite end, Mike.
Yeah.
It's just he's fucking shotgun.
Yeah.
Like, guy's awesome.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, he's the first to admit, like, yeah, I don't know, maybe my time was washy.
Yeah.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much fucking like.
I told him this in the.
It's him just like shooting at you.
It's 100% him, and I told him this in our interview. But like, my ambition is to have the mental. Fuck you! I don't care. Of
Dude,
Mike Rex.
It's,
you know what I mean? Like that's the. I wish I could get there.
I am in awe of it, man.
Because it makes him the player he is.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's just this relentless, beastly, primal thing, which is not being hampered at all by like
it's
brain
the most
thought.
Fully committed.
Yeah.
To just expressing what he's doing too, like, which is very cool.
Yeah. So like when you're.
So I had to think of something to like make it enjoyable, and to a certain extent I had to like when we ended up having to write some different songs or whatever at that time with Belus, like I had to like play what felt good and what I wanted to play. Mm-hmm. So whether that was like, all right, me and Matt are gonna smoke some bowls and like write, like that kind of methodology of just being in a room and like dicking off and seeing what came out was so much more fun.
That's a great way to
and
write.
So much more interesting than, hey, I have a riff.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got this other riff.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you Frankenstein them together like this, but like writing together and just like, oh, well, this feels good to play this when you do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that. That's sort of where I took it. Like
that's a thing, right? What literally feels good to play.
What feels right to me as I'm playing, like, that's what you do. Yeah, you can always go back and listen and be like, fuck, that's a little much. Like, I like your idea, but maybe, rein it in or whatever. But, like, be cool and let yourself just do what comes out.
That visceral expression that you're talking about is so essential. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Because that's how, what I was talking about earlier, like, you sound like you as a drummer. Like,
thanks, man. I don't know what that, I couldn't articulate.
No, because you're you.
I'm just like,
it's, you
can't, okay, guys?
You can't see the fucking thing from inside of the snow globe, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
But, like, I think that kind of expression only happens if you're doing what you're talking about. If you're playing from that principle of like what feels right to me, and then go from there. It's sometimes I'm very much playing things that don't feel right to me because somebody else has wrote it and it's right for their riff, but it's not my natural expression.
Which is super good for you too.
It's super good for you. Like, it's fun, but it also
that's sitting in that discomfort.
Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I could do that part, but I'm not gonna have as much fun.
Right. I mean, that's like part of a balance too. I mean, it's different like when you're writing like your music or your band's music and playing and having a good time and doing it for fun, and another thing like somebody hands you a chart and they're like, okay, dude, like here you go. Then
you have to.
It's
but often I find that people are a little more lenient with their charts than one might assume, which is nice, Like sometimes people are very cool with me being like, can I do this?
That's sick. That's very cool.
That's been my experience in Scarcity, which is great. Like I get very detailed drum music, and then like Brendan is incredibly cool about like editorializing.
Oh, very cool.
So it's a great mixture. I like when people write for me because I suspect that the people who wrote the riffs know the most about how they want the riffs to be cushioned.
Totally. But, or like where they want it to feel.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want you to get back. You also work with some folks that like, you know, they got some serious chops of their own. They do. So it's not as though you're going to be served up. But in terms the same of six,
in terms of something
situations
you were saying, to navigate. I work with some folks who have insane chops, but they have very, very radically different ways of writing and composing music, and varying different levels of musical theory that are known or employed into doing so. Just to the point of like, it's nice to know these things, but it's not essential to know these things. Like some of the best musicians I know are fairly limited in their theoretical grasp of music, and it doesn't fucking matter.
No, totally.
Because they're instinctual, and veteran sort of grasp of music is off the charts. It's like you use whatever tools you have. I do think the more tools, the merrier.
Oh, absolutely. Why wouldn't you learn or want to learn more? I mean, it's been for me like the last 5 to 6 years. Like after Belus wound down and I was doing some other stuff, and then just ended up like COVID, like all of us, like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do all day? Yeah. I went and played drums for like, 1 million hours a day. Yeah. And
were you in Ten Eyck?
I had that little single space you saw at Ten Eyck. And I'd go there for like 8 hours a day for that first while during the pandemic because my wife had to work out of the home. And like, at the time we were living in like an 800 square foot apartment, or 400 square. It was literally, it was like this, and then there was a bathroom. Right. Like it was a tight quarters. Yeah.
Dude, I was alone, and I was still going cabin fever crazy.
Oh, totally. But I had to get out of her way. Yeah. Like she was also working in the kitchen, which was also the desk, and all that stuff. So. Yeah, I'd come to the practice space for like 8 hours and get really, really into practicing. And I know that's when I started trying, like making an honest effort to like, I probably should learn to read a little bit.
Interesting.
I probably should learn the right way to do a lot of this stuff. Because sure, instinctual, and I can do some things well. Yeah. And other things well enough that if you're not paying attention, you might think I did it.
That's a lot of jazz. Really, that's a lot of jazz playing. Like it's not about like precise technique. That's not the point.
Well, but I mean, like I would like even hesitate to say like I'm like an aspiring jazz drum. Like I've got no
more than aspiring.
Bro, there's like so many 18-year-old kids like applying to programs in the city that could like shred me from
but shredding is not the fucking point.
Shredding is not the point.
Absolutely
but
not.
There's I don't know. It's there is definitely on my own end like such an enormous level of intimidation to even think about like trying to enter that sphere.
Why do you think it's intimidation as opposed to inspiration? Because
I'm inspired to learn it.
I get intimidated too, and I'm not saying this is a judgment call because sometimes sometimes I'm inspired by players who I think smoke me. Sometimes I get discouraged by it. I think we all do.
I mean, sure. There's wow. How come we can do that? Yeah. I mean,
he's fucking 18 and I'm 40 and I still can't do it. What the fuck?
Right. Like, what did I do wrong? Yeah. I mean, there's always those phenoms and the whether they're edited or not, Instagram stuff and everything else. I mean, which Instagram does have some really, really cool, like, people who do show, like, like you say, warts and all, but, like, will show actual processes of how they come up with something and break it down.
Absolutely.
Like,
it's not all,
there's a few dudes, it's not all, like, goofball shit or
one arm bullshit.
Oh the paint or like all the trick sticks or like that's
stupid. It's just goofy. Stupid. I get it. You want to make your brand, but
or
fuck
like
off.
Try and get some sort of weird endorsement deal for being a professional practicer, because there's those people too.
For real, who can't play with bands, can't function with bands.
Or aren't playing with bands, but like, and you're like, well, yeah, but maybe you played with a band at some point. Yeah, and it's like, no, not really.
One of the guys who's fun in the metal world, but is on like I think the fun end of the Instagram shit is this guy. I'm blanking on his name, but he does like here's a classic metal drum riff and here's how to play it. And he was the drummer for this band Nefast in Brazil, which is like insane. Oh, cool. And like just super underground. Right. Nobody knows about this band, and now he like won Instagram metal drummer of the year. Oh, that's totally cool. Doing his thing, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, for the most part, I find like I've never been more impressed by drumming, and I've never been more depressed by drumming.
Right. Well, I mean, it gets to a point too where it's like when you get so wrapped up into what you can pull off or technique or whatever else, you forget the like, well, should I or do I need to do this? Did the song tell me to do this? Yeah. Like, is there really a need for like a quintuplet lick like here? Or like, usually the answer is no.
Usually the answer is no. My basic philosophy is very simple. Everything I play, whether it's busy or simple, I need to be able to justify based on the riff. If I can't tell you why I did it, I shouldn't be doing it.
Totally.
If I can tell you why I did it, even if it's over the top, maybe I should be doing it.
Right.
But if I don't have a reason, no, fuck that.
Then there's literally
then it's masturbation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, that's not to say that you shouldn't, or at least you should still be trying to write parts or write things or work on things that are over your head.
Yeah.
Like that's one, it's fulfilling, and that's how you get better.
And you should be sucking. In rooms like this, you should be sucking.
No, it should be bordered, or I mean, it probably actually shouldn't be. I shouldn't be telling people they should feel embarrassed when somebody walks in. But
I feel embarrassed when I'm playing sometimes, especially in spaces like this with so many monsters surrounding us.
I mean, there's some definitely some shredders, but like. Yeah, like it should be hard. It should, even if you're learning something for a song that you're gonna have to perform with a band or trying to learn a lick by yourself or whatever. Like it should be harder than something you already know how to do. Because if you already knew how to do it, like what would be the point? Like
you fucking love Dark Souls shit. You people probably fucking love Dark Souls shit. I fucking can't deal with it. I get too frustrated. But like. Imagine that process but applied to you as a human being, not leveling up in a video game, but like that slog and sometimes missteps, sometimes you lose progress and you gotta spend a few hours more getting it back. But like there's a deep reward to fucking killing that guy after you've died for the 7 billion fucking time. And there's a deep reward to getting the thing that you've been slogging away at. But sometimes it's rough on the brain.
It can be really, really rough on the brain. So at a certain point, you're like weighing, like, do I feel like I can come in? Do I feel good enough to like sit down, like, because I tried this and this doesn't work, and I tried that and that didn't work, or it can be.
I just run my head against the wall.
Like, not even just specific things. Sometimes, sometimes it's literally like, your whole playing in general, which I think most drummers we get guilty of it, is like your identity is your playing. I know you talked about it. I certainly feel like that all the time. It's like, oh my god, like
when I lack confidence as a drummer,
I don't feel good about this. I lose like something that's in you, which is kind of weird to think of and talk about, that you would define yourself so much by, I mean. Sometimes it's your profession, but in large part, is a serious hobby.
It's a calling,
at the least, or a calling, or something.
Regardless of whether it's professional or not. Like
totally,
a lot of the best drummers I know are not professional in the like, strict sense of the word. They have day jobs, and that's just the reality of playing shitty underground music.
I mean,
shitty underground music,
or like actually like it's really, really hard to make a living as a musician. Absolutely. I used to live with a professional drummer when I still lived in Southern California. And he had a recording studio, and I had the back room and everything, and like it was tough, man. I definitely remember he struggled. Like, and he was really, really good.
It's not about. I mean, it's
not about
partially
being,
about good.
It is about being good, but there's so much other stuff to it.
There's a lot of other shit. And, a hilarious part of this world is so many people are fuck-ups. You can get a lot of gigs just by like being less good but showing up on time and not being a complete idiot asshole.
Totally.
That's
being able to pull it off and be a good hang.
Yeah.
Someone's probably going to call the dude that can they can do it, but I want to hang out with this guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
think about it with your own band.
Yeah.
If you've got to practice with them multiple times, a week or a month,
as people,
you guys need to be best buds.
I've been pretty lucky.
Otherwise, why do you want to waste your time doing it? You know?
Yeah, for sure. But talk to me a little bit. I wanted to sort of loop back slightly to when you're at a show and you're in a moment of existential crisis or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
What do you do? How do you deal with it?
I try to find literally it's kind of physical. So this is 5 years of Gestalt therapy talking.
Yeah. Very important.
Therapy is super important. But literally feel where it is in your body while you're playing or you're doing whatever, and try and recenter your gravity. Whether that's where you're sitting on the throne, or how you're playing, or where you're holding your stick, or why you're striking, or how you're hitting your cymbals or doing whatever. But
do you have a checklist?
Find your gravity and breathe. In general, when you play drums, you should be breathing, not raggedly.
Yeah.
Not you should not be holding your breath. You should not be going and trying to muscle through the hard part without breathing. All of your limbs are moving to a rhythm. Your breath should be finding a rhythm and moving to that same thing.
That makes me uncomfortable. I don't like thinking about my breathing rhythmically.
Really?
Yeah, it kind of freaks me out. But what I do is, for one, I want to be completely relaxed.
Totally.
What sometimes that means is I want to be thinking about relaxation in parts of me that have nothing to do with drumming, because it informs everything else. So I'll grit my teeth and realize that I ain't anything but relaxed over here. So instead of thinking about breathing as breathing, I'll think about going slack-jawed and mouth open.
No, that makes sense.
And it kind of gets me to the same place.
Absolutely. But yeah, finding what those physical cues are in your body that you're tensing up.
So for you, it's balance, breathing.
Balance, breathing, and then going looser.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has to go I mean, I've literally been made fun of at shows for it, but having spaghetti arms.
But spaghetti arms are the arms drummers ought to have, I believe. You should be whipping noodle through the air. That's the best way to produce great tone on your instrument, and it's the best way to keep yourself healthy on the instrument.
Totally.
And I love the way this dude moves.
Spaghetti arms. I mean, it was too the whole COVID shutdown thing. I reevaluated my grip.
Mm-hmm.
I reevaluated how I sit, where everything is.
Talk me through some of this. What did you change in terms of your grip?
I mean, which it's not great for.
And you use twigs.
Well, I mean, I use 5As. They're not twigs. I mean, it's not I've got little tiny 7As, but yeah. I mean, I can't. I have trouble with a really big stick. Part of it might be because of how I hold them.
It's a lot of space.
Learning.
Oh, you're going traditional?
Learning too, my dad and uncle.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is how you hold the stick.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me until I was actually in a grindcore band at I don't know, age 19 or whatever, that nah, dude, you should probably get comfortable playing.
I've seen a couple dudes blasting traditional, but it's a very rare beast, and it doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense.
It really does. I mean, honestly, traditional, yes, you can do things that you can't necessarily do as easily match, but when push comes to shove, this is far more versatile. You can do so much more this way.
And by the way,
than you can this way. Not that there's a good, bad, or whatever, but this is left over from marching drums.
Exactly.
And it's sitting on your side, and you had to get yourself.
This is exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it's
traditional is not really traditional. If you want to go back to it. So the bottom line is,
whatever.
you have to approach it like this, because you can't approach a drum slung like this.
No,
like this. So traditional is 17th century or whatever. people playing drums in the Bronze Age were not fucking holding their sticks in two different ways if they had sticks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's also it's crazy unnatural.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's for a drum slung
really,
in
like you're gonna
angle.
like flip somebody the bird and like thread your finger through.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. That's how I used to explain it. But yeah, it's like
okay.
But yeah, man, like sure, there's fucking rad drumline dudes and all of that stuff, and it's not to take anything away from that, but like as far as being on a drum set, like unless you're really, really trying to capture that specific era's sound, there's no reason to like necessarily do it.
It makes me roll my eyes a little bit when guys flip back and forth and stuff. Although sometimes I think it's really cool. Sometimes
honestly, it depends because if they really do have to go like from something like that to like really needing like the kind of nuanced comping.
Yeah, but I think you can do nuanced comping with match grip.
I mean, I totally agree because there's a lot of rad dudes that can and do. But yeah, I don't know. Like the flipping back and forth to me though, that just seems like one extra thing that I would have to think about.
That's the thing.
And I don't want to dedicate my RAM to that, you know, like my
absolutely.
space.
I don't ever want to be thinking about switching gears when I'm playing. I want everything to be flowing from the same state of technique.
Same thing with like, you know, it's cool if you want to like hold your stick up or whatever. Like that was never me. I always felt like a fucking ding dong doing it. Again, that's more like my self confidence versus.
I have to be feeling it, you know. I can't do it artificially. I have to be like, let's flow.
Yeah, even if I'm feeling it though, like I am not the kind of person that can stand up there and take themselves feel good about myself like flipping somebody the bird or being
it's been a very recent thing for me. Like I was doing that on this Ruin Lust tour. And I don't do that shit, but I was like,
I mean, that's probably pretty liberating though.
It's very liberating.
Like I'm not saying it as like I would knock it or knock people.
No, I know.
I don't have that in me. Like, or maybe I do, but I don't let it out.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
No, there's a catharsis to
therapy's later this week, so maybe we'll discuss that. Man. But, you know.
When you're out of your head, good things happen.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just fucking hard getting out of your head.
It's so hard.
So for me, it's mushrooms.
Totally. I mean, I've definitely done that, both in this room and in the other room. And it's cool. I can't necessarily like use it as a practice tool, but I could see like some application outside of the like whole it makes you less depressed and which I mean we both know we both have some struggles.
No, I don't just use it for drumming, but it is not a particularly recreational thing for me, if that makes sense. I'm self-medicating in a healthy way, maybe.
Could be, but I mean, but yeah, I too, like again, like it started during COVID. Like, well, what if I did this? Like, I'm not doing anything today. I don't have work.
Yeah.
Nobody at work watch this. Thank you.
Yeah, don't send the liquor out.
Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, it's like, why wouldn't I? And you do, and it's really interesting. I mean, we were talking about it not too long ago, but like, it's you being shown something versus you doing something and feeling uninhibited. Like, it's like it bypasses that part of your brain that is saying, "I am camera." Like, watch me do this, and it you're just doing it.
Something I realized,
which is very, very cool and kind of very close to, like, you know how when you get into like your flow state, like where you could be stone cold sober and playing, and everything comes out the way you want it to.
You just feel it feels
good,
like a demigod.
It sounds good. You're moving well. Which I mean, for everything, like the moving well part is such a huge part of playing well and sounding good. Because it's all like your dance or whatever
it is
you're
a dance.
doing. You know, it's supposed to feel that way. It's supposed to look that way.
That's something that's come up a lot in these is people referring it either to dancing or martial art or something. And
totally.
I completely agree with both of those things. How you strike matters. It's you're producing sound via movement. It's acoustic. So
Totally.
how you strike really matters. And it's getting lost a little bit in the era of sound replacing, I think.
And with sound replacing, or some genres versus other genres. Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, like there's not a whole lot of room for like what I like doing or how I play in metal or in the band I was in.
Yeah.
Like.
But you snuck in some.
I snuck in some.
There's
stuff.
Like pretty shuffles in there.
Sure, but like. You can sneak stuff in, but there's a question of translation, Sure. And when you have that much sound coming out of everybody else too, that's not what is necessarily being expressed. It might look really cool, like you're doing a bunch of interesting things. Hopefully you're on time. I mean, the sound guy knows, but like most of the people wouldn't necessarily be picking up on that. And
it's like keeping the hi-hat going when you're blasting through noise. It's like, is anybody actually hearing that click?
Exactly. Like, and if this doesn't translate, then I shouldn't do it.
Right.
Or I should
mutate
it in some way to make it work for the song. And that was something I was kind of trying to do at the time. But in all honesty, like if I would listen to myself recorded versus live, like, yeah, it translates recorded. Yeah. If it doesn't translate live, then I've got a lot of work to do.
Not necessarily a lot of work. But
that's...
sometimes it's just a matter of, like, I need to make these ghosts a little less ghosty.
Totally.
It's not like reinventing the wheel.
I mean, for me, I guess hitting hard which is, kind of like the holy cow or holy grail, the sacred cow of metal.
Yeah.
For metal drummers, it's always, does he fucking hit hard? And
well,
of course everybody wants
pissing contest bullshit.
Sure, but everybody also wants somebody that hits hard because it's going to cut through everything. Yeah. And you could have rad chops, but if it doesn't cut, then you're just kind of waving your arms around.
There are guys who sound amazing when you put the mics on and don't sound so amazing when the mics aren't on.
Oh, totally.
And part of that is just like, if you're a 300 BPM Meister, you're not playing loudly. It's just physics. It's not happening.
Yeah, there's no way.
So you make sacrifices, and you make your deals with the devil to hit certain thresholds and stuff.
Totally.
But yeah, people are real funny about like, is he tapper? And I'm like that to some extent. I buy into the macho bullshit a little bit. I really like guys who smack your drums. But I think smacking your drums, comes from the sort of way you play drums. If you're whipping and loose, you can hit like a motherfucker.
Yeah, you can definitely what is, or probably still is, hard for me though, is hitting hard enough to articulate everything, and choosing like the right, I guess, amount of power to apply or whatever. Yeah. And it started again when I went back to like changing grip and really thinking about.
Tell me a little bit more about.
Oh yeah, like really thinking about like my whole hand gripping the drumstick, as opposed to like people play from like
just
that,
fulcrum.
like a front fulcrum, and like really. Like, I wouldn't call it, like, back fulcrum, although I'll definitely use, like, this back fulcrum.
Oh, interesting. I've never thought about that. I've never thought about that, ever. Dude, that's crazy. So you give up on the actual fulcrum?
I don't give up necessarily on the fulcrum.
Right then.
This is another fulcrum, though. Yeah. This is your back fulcrum.
You're learning me something. You're learning me something.
But that's how, like, rough or bad my front fulcrum is now. It's in stasis. Like it was where it was when I switched, but probably
let's do an A/B.
Do it that much.
So when I'm holding this stick, I'm thinking about this like kind of classic fulcrum, and I'm not trying to create really any kind of a cavity or a very slight cavity in terms of my fingers are not pressing, but they're holding the stick always against the palm of my hand. So I can do this comfortably. I think you're much more open, right?
Yeah, I try to, even if I close I try and keep space. One, because that naturally keeps your muscles looser. Two, you kind of automatically create the cradle for your stick when you hold like that.
Yep.
And I mean, everybody has like their different like technique or whatever, if they call it like push pull or
I guess we're not all that different, honestly.
But it's really similar. It's just when I'm letting something go.
I never let my fingers go.
If it's a push pull, like I'm not gonna let my fingers go like all the way out, like but like the Yoni Madar video or whatever, like, where the guy's like hands are like I can't do it, but like his fingers go all the way out like on those push pulls, and
crazy.
It's like
it's
the whole thing
it's sorcery.
Going, it's wild. I would love to be able to move that way. I know a lot of it kind of is more like about bounce and how he's manipulating his stick with just his fingers, but I kind of went back to, we'll bring it full circle, maybe it'll make a little bit of sense, but like that whole like Tony thing.
I remember you saying this cool Tony quote the other day.
It was like somebody asked, are you using your front fulcrum or your back fulcrum? And it's like, no, I'm using my hand. And I mean, it can be frustrating to hear when somebody says shit like that, where because a lot of the phenoms are like really good players. They're not thinking about their leg mechanics or whatever else. Like I know we talk about that together sometimes too.
That's not a reductive statement. Like that's a holistic statement, and there's a big difference. Like you do want to be thinking about the bigger systems, not always the minutia. Like the fingers are part of the hand.
Totally.
The wrist is part of the hand. But sometimes it sounds like he's telling you to fuck off, but I don't think he was telling the guy to fuck off.
I don't think he wasn't telling the guy to fuck off, although like that kind of vibe does definitely like permeate.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, man, it is your whole hand. And I find when I am launching something from thinking about my whole hand, and that back fulcrum is a big part of my whole hand. When I'm holding my stick like this, like I can let go and use my front fulcrum for something and bring it back and use my back fulcrum for something.
So it's kind of...
Now, it's not as though you can... Yeah, that's like would be like the full Yoni Madar thing.
Oh, okay.
But like if I need to play...
So you're just minimizing that kind of motion?
Yeah, I just want to minimize that kind of motion in between. So if I'm using my front fulcrum, I can still do that. But this, I can do like... indefinitely almost.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
I wonder if you guys can hear the sound the stick's making in the air too, because that to me is a great indicator of how to be loose and how to have power. Like,
well, and that's where the power comes from.
Like if you think about being a kid with a tree branch, trying to whip it, that's what you're trying to do. Create that whoosh. If you're doing that, it means you're moving with torque and with whip, and you're moving right, and you can hear that over there.
But yeah, when I do this and do it, like it's like you can just do it. But like the power comes there too, because when you do want to hit your rim shot or do want to smack your crash, it's less about like I'm gonna muscle through it or I'm gonna play through it or this and that, and it's more almost like I'm throwing the stick.
Absolutely.
I'm throwing the stick at what it is I want to hit. That's how
how do you think about the back end of that? Sorry to interrupt. Like
what my rebound is on that?
So for instance, for me, I throw the stick and then I want that motion to completely die. I'm not thinking about rebound or backswing at all. I'm going dead. How are you doing?
I don't want it to die because I think I tend to play off my heads. But that kind of comes down to like differences between, you probably can't get it on the phone, but like a difference between playing...
I could take this thing out of its holster.
Into your Skycam. Like it's a difference of into your drum. Or like burying the beater.
Yeah.
Versus playing off the head.
See, for me, I disagree though, because I'm not burying the beater. I do the same thing with my foot. I totally relax the stroke, and that means that the beater comes back naturally.
Right.
I'm not holding any. I'm not pressing down.
Right.
I'm going
not
plop
into it.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.